And we're live. Sebastien Audy, welcome to the Happy Hustle podcast, my brother. I am so excited to connect.
Thank you, Cary. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for the opportunity, and I salute the audience.
Hey, man, you are 100% a happy hustler. But not only that, you are one of the toughest humans I know. You have summited 6 out of the 7 highest mountain peaks in 6 of the 7 continents around the world. You're a manager at the World Bank. You have this unwavering mental fortitude. You're a world explorer, a motivational speaker. What is your mission in the world, Seb? Because I feel like you've already accomplished so much. What fuels you?
Well, I have this relentless focus on growth and growth across the board. Personal growth in my career, in my relationships, spirituality at all levels. And the other thing is, my mission is around contribution. I want to contribute to make the world a better place. I want to help other human beings to become better versions of themselves. And that's basically why I transitioned a few years back from a very successful career in consulting in one of the big 4 consulting firms to the World Bank, where I've been working there for the past 8.5 years.
Wow. Yeah, that is such an amazing transition to go from absolutely crushing it in your consulting career to then working with the World Bank, who's really out there attempting to make the world a better place, and rightfully is. Yeah. It's very noble of you, and I'm honored to know you and call you a biohacking brother, because that's how we initially met, was through the Biohacking Secrets program. And then, we were a part of the Optimized CEO Mastermind together, and I watch your work ethic and I watch how you push. I mean, no one I know has the mental fortitude, has just the discipline and the high performance habits like you. I knew I wanted to bring you on and rock the mic for the happy hustlers out there, because we can all learn so much from you and how you just really can train yourself and your mindset. And that's what I want to get into, guys, on this episode of the Happy Hustle podcast is how to mentally perform at the highest level and implement those habits that can help set you up for success. Seb, what are some of your non-negotiable high performance habits that you lean on that help you really crush it in your life and in your work and your career?
Yep. Well, I have a morning routine, and I also do have a evening routine. And so among these 2 routines, I have different habits that I'm stacking up and I'm executing in a row. So I'm getting up, like, for instance, in the morning, I will meditate between 20 minutes or an hour, and then I'm going to crush my workout. I'm going to have breakfast or prepare breakfast for my son, because, family is extremely important. It's one of my core values, and I want to spend good quality time every single day that I am at home, not traveling, with my son, with my wife. So this is something that is very important as well.
What time do you get up, Seb? I'm just curious.
Usually between 4:30 and 5:30. So
savage. That's early, man.
That's very, very early. And then same thing, usually at night, I put a lot of emphasis on recovery. So it's either infrared sauna, I do the biohacking baths if I've done like a long cardio workout during the day. So it's basically Epsom salt with baking soda and 35% hydrogen peroxide. So to me, and especially as I'm growing older, recovery is becoming so important. So I used to crush it and work 100 hours a week or 80 hours a week. But at some point in time, you just crash and burn. And it takes like weeks sometimes just to pick yourself back up and come back to that high level of performance. So therefore, now that I've learned from these past mistakes, sleep is an absolute must for me. I will never compromise on sleep. And all these other biohacking, also like supplements that I will take, and meditation practice, as I mentioned earlier. It's a huge, huge part of my life. Also, I meditate probably 15 or 20 hours a month.
Wow, that is impressive. I mean, I'm grateful when I get a good 5-minute session in, let alone 20 hours a month. And I mean, your routine is so essential, guys. If you're listening to this and you haven't really dialed in your morning routine, you're missing it, because that is where we win the day, is in the morning. So Seb's morning routine, yes, he's getting up 4:35 in the morning, but he stacks it. He has meditation, his workout, he hyperhydrates, he's doing saunas, he's doing cold baths, he's taking care of himself, he's focusing on recovery, he's focusing on family. These things are essential. You know what I want to just dive right into is, because I gotta know. Talk to me about climbing Mount Everest. I mean, I know you've done that. That is such an amazing accomplishment. Talk to me about that experience.
Yeah, so it's basically a 9-week experience, door to door. So it takes a big amount of time, and basically it's due to the acclimatization process that is taking time. At the summit of Mount Everest, there's only 25 or 30% of oxygen in comparison to what we breathe at the sea level. So therefore, you go up and come back down, could go up again, sleep the night, come back down again, and so on. So you basically progress like this very slowly. So your body has the time to adapt, and by basically generating more red cells, so you have more red cells to transport lesser and lesser oxygen more efficiently. So that's basically how you acclimatize. So climbing Mount Everest was very challenging for me, especially because the preparation, I was working so much in consulting, I was traveling to visit my clients and so on. So it was very challenging to put the 15-20 hours of training every week. And so that was the main challenge before. But during, I had an accident. I basically fell about 30 feet, injured my left hip, and then I had a whiplash. I was, for 2 weeks, it was very difficult for me to move. So usually, let's say if you go from base camp to camp 1, it's going to take you, once you're acclimatized, I would say 3 or 4 hours, or 2 hours if you're really fast. But while I was injured, it took me like 10 or 12 hours. So basically three times more.
So you climbed Mount Everest injured, basically.
Yeah. And on the summit push, my oxygen mask was not working. So I was not able to fix it until I was 300 meters away, or let's say a tenth of a mile away from the summit. So it was very challenging to push through these challenges. But at the same time, I will say that I'm so blessed, and I'm so grateful for these obstacles, because it pushes you to actually expand your comfort zone. And then once your comfort zone goes from here to there, there's no coming back. It's there. That's your new reality. So which is why I've always kind of, over the years, developed this kind of capacity to learn the signs. If I feel like, I have a fear to actually do this, or it seems to be a big challenge, therefore I know it's a signal. I got to do this, so I can keep pushing and expanding and growing and becoming an even a better version of myself. So I'm very committed towards that.
I mean, Seb, you are part machine, part amazing father, just 100% heart. I love it. It is just an epic story. I mean, you literally climbed Mount Everest injured, basically, with no oxygen to the top, because it wasn't working properly. That is so powerful. And what really resonates is how you push past that fear in your life. Yeah. Maybe the listeners out there, I know I am super interested. Maybe they can all benefit, and I know I can as well. Pushing past that fear. What are some of those tactics that you utilize to push past that fear, to then, get yourself into state to then, when you need to do something, but you really are afraid? What are some of the ways that you push past that fear?
Yeah. Well, I think, I try, first of all, to always fuel my mind with great content, whether it's podcasts, reading books, and so on. And there's actually one book that really resonated with me, and it's called Mindset by Carol Dweck. I don't know if I pronounce that last name right, so excuse the French-Canadian accent. But anyway, it's about growth mindset versus a fixed mindset.
Mm.
So when you're in a fixed mindset, you're gonna struggle like to push your limits because you are afraid to look bad in front of your peers, in front of maybe superiors in a work environment and so on. So therefore, you're gonna try to either hide or potentially even cheat. It's like for instance, students might actually cheat for their exams so they can ace it and kind of protect this kind of identity or their ego that they're still extremely gifted and intelligent. So when you have this fixed mindset, you also believe that you're born with a certain set of talents and intelligence and so on, and therefore it's not necessarily worth it to put efforts towards the achievement of your goals. While a growth mindset is the exact opposite. Instead of putting so much emphasis on the outcome or the results, you're going to thrive in appreciating the efforts. So you're going to put the efforts in to actually learn something new. You're going to be joyful or towards a challenge because it's something that's stimulating you. So I think this is a very powerful concept, and this is something that I apply. So sometimes, I'm also, another thing that I do on a daily basis is I have a planner, which is called the High Performance Planner by Brendan Burchard.
Yeah,
So
Brendan.
I basically ask myself, these questions every day, and what I'm grateful for, what I'm afraid of, and so on and so forth. So I bring these fears or these concerns in I'm aware of these things, so therefore I can have like a real assessment of whether or not I want to do something like this, or I don't want to invest my effort. So I need to prioritize what I want and don't want to do. So, but again, to me right now, I'm probably a little bit strange that way. If I have fear, if I feel discomfort, I know it's a trigger for me. It means that I need to potentially push a little bit my limits or pay attention to it. And in just a silly example, in this time of confinement and quarantine during COVID-19, there's something that I have wanted to do for a number of years, and it's to learn the typing on the keyboard. So I'm typing fairly fast, but with only three fingers on each hand.
That's how I use it.
And so therefore you need to reprogram your brain. And at the beginning, to be honest with you, you suck. It's terrible. Sorry to use a bad word.
No, it's not a bad word.
But anyway, it's terrible. And then you have this kind of internal chatter saying, oh, it's so hard. You're already typing fast. Why do you want to go back and type 10 words per minute while you're currently typing probably 40 or 50? So it's basically kind of putting your fate into, okay, look, other people have done this and they can write extremely fast and so on. So I like to challenge myself. I see this more like I don't necessarily need it, but I see it as a brain exercise to actually build neural pathways in your brain.
Wow. That's a great example. And I think that's such an important distinction, guys. If you're listening out there and you have that fixed mindset, it's important to transition to that growth mindset and to focus on not only the achievement of your goal, but also the effort that you put forth, and reward yourself based on effort, not on the actual accomplishment. And you'll never feel a lack of fulfillment in the process. Very well said. And that book, one more time, called Mindset, right?
I have it here.
Oh, there you go. Mindset. For those of you who want to dive deeper, very important concept. And I mean, as Seb said, it's about challenging yourself. It's about growing every single day in some way. That's why I implement the 90 minutes of growth every day. I call it the Happy Hustler Daily Formula for personal development. And it's just 30 minutes of reading every day, 30 minutes of listening every day, and 30 minutes of watching something inspiring and educational. Everything has to be, for me at least, educational or inspiring in order to count as a minute towards that, the compound effect of that content adds up to skill acquisition and implementation. And that's what Seb's talking about, is growing every day, and especially with his goals. I mean, he has huge goals, guys. Listen to this. He is going for the breakthrough, also known as La Grande Percée. I butcher French.
Well done.
La Grande Percée. It's fun to say.
Yeah.
But it consists of 3 of the most ambitious expeditions in the world. Basically, the first one is the North Pole, right? Actually, why don't you tell us what those 3 are? I want to, you know more than I. Talk to us about those expeditions and what your motivation is behind them.
Yeah. So the first expedition is a full ski expedition to the North Pole. The second expedition is in Antarctica, where I will do a full ski expedition to the South Pole, which should take me around 30, 35 days. And then I'm going to climb the highest peak, which is called Mount Vincent, and complete, the highest, climbing the highest peak on each of the 7 continents. And the third expedition is a south to north crossing of Greenland using a kite surf. So basically harvesting the power of the wind to propel yourself forward. So in all of these expeditions, it's basically a very heavy sled. We're talking about 250 pounds in the case of Antarctica, with all the gear, the food, the fuel, and so on. And I would say my primary motivation is, again, growth and also contribution. So growth is also growing from a health, fitness perspective, growing from a mindset perspective, because you're pushing so hard. It's like 10 to 15 hours a day pulling that heavy sled and so on. So it helps to build this fortitude, this mental toughness.
Oh yeah.
But there's also another very important reason, which is to contribute by raising money for the climate change. So I'm working with a foundation, United Way, so that they basically are going to use the funds that will be raised to help people in situation of poverty that are actually suffering from the consequences of climate change.
Yeah, what a great mission. So you're raising awareness for climate change by going on La Grande Percée and these really ambitious expeditions. I mean, guys, picture it. We're talking Seb in the middle of Antarctica, crossing with a 250-pound sled, battling polar bears, frostbite, pneumonia, like sinkholes from I guess it wouldn't be called a sinkhole. It'd be called like the lake cracking and you falling in, right?
The crevasses. Well,
crevasses, yeah.
The challenges on the North Pole expedition are obviously polar bear, but also the North Pole is on top of the Arctic Ocean. So you basically have to pull your sled on a floating sheet of ice, and sometimes you'll see like water, and you have to swim in between with special suits and so on. So, sometimes you're drifting away from your objectives, so you can walk the entire day or ski the entire day, and then you actually, didn't move, when you look at before and after. So that's basically the challenge on the North Pole. On the Antarctica, it's mostly these big crevasses, because it's a continent, and the South Pole is higher up. So when the sheet of ice is going like this, then there are some fractures, and you can have some pretty deep crevasses. So you have to navigate through this, especially in the first few days, and then before you reach the plateau, and then that becomes a little bit easier that way, or the risks are lesser.
Wow. I mean, that is just mind-boggling to think about. Just how many hours of preparation goes into then being in the moment and carrying a sled, 250 pounds of weight and gear. Wow, amazing, Seb. What I want to do now is kind of take it back. And I know where you are, like as this world-class explorer, this motivational speaker, this manager at the World Bank. You have such a grand mission. What I want to know is what it was like growing up for Seb. Talk to us about, your childhood a little bit, and maybe what was your first hustle? What you first started to do for money?
Yeah, those are amazing questions, actually. So I grew up in Quebec, Canada. So which explains the accent. And I was surrounded by nature. So I grew up in a small town of about 50,000 people. And if you take a car and drive 15 minutes out, you're in a national park. So I've always been very close to nature. And my first hustle, I was, I think, maybe 10 or 11 years old. And I was basically a baseball coach with very small kids, like 2, 3 years old. And they were basically learning how to swing the bat and try to hit the ball on a T-ball. So I loved it because kids are just awesome. And so when you're in a position where you can teach something to small kids, I think it's an enormous privilege, which I appreciate a lot. And I was also preparing the field before games. So I was responsible for 2 fields and then basically setting up the bases and drawing the lines and making sure the infield is pristine and so on. So that was basically my first hustle.
Right on, man. I played Little League all growing up, and yeah, I love baseball. So that's cool, man. What did you think you wanted to be initially growing up? Did you have a goal?
I will surprise you, actually. When I was a kid, I wanted to become a farmer because I love nature. I like being outside. And the other thing is farmers are working hard. They're using their hands, they're using their muscles and so on. So I was very attracted by this, and probably coming from my mother. My mother grew up on a farm as a young kid. And in that part of the family, so there is this kind of proximity to nature, and they all live in a farmland country. So it's this. I found it very interesting, and also the contact with the animals as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I grew up on a ranch in Montana half the year, and I know the value of $1 and hard work and farming your own vegetables, and you learn a lot on a farm or on a ranch. It's very rewarding. They call it blue collar work, and definitely I recommend everyone get their hands dirty and get some work in outside on a farm or a ranch, at least once in your life. Yeah, very good point. Who do you think is still that grit and hustle that you possess, or that mental fortitude? Who, if anyone, in your early childhood years?
Well, my parents, in their own ways, have demonstrated this in many different occasions, and I practiced a lot of sports growing up, and this was something that was very important. Once you commit to something, you do it all the way until the end and you give your best. So, and also if I go in the extended family, on one side of the family, as I was mentioning earlier, basically entrepreneurs in the construction or farmers and so on, hardworking, lots of grit. And on the other side of the family, on my father's side, a lot of intellectuals, that are very committed, not counting their hours, trying to contribute and build their careers. So in many ways, I was inspired by many of these, leaders around me.
Right on. Yeah. I mean, it's an important note, guys. You are the sum of your 5 closest relationships. You either round up or you round down. Focus on who's in your inner circle. And I even think it extends a little bit further than 5. I think it's probably around 10 to 15. Who is normally in your circle? Who do you call? Who do you lean on? Those people have an effect on you. So focus on who are you connecting with. And if you're not where you want to be, well, maybe level up and connect with people who are where you want to be, or who inspire you or raise your level. Great points there, Seb. I want to get into some tangible happy hustle hacks for the listeners, because I always like to leave people with, real tangible take homes that they can apply to their life right away. And let's start with health first, because you are an absolute machine. I mean, you got an 8-pack. You're probably one of the most ripped, functionally sound individuals that I know. I mean, you actually can utilize the muscle and the strength because you have to. I mean, you're climbing Mount Everest and the highest peaks in the world, and you're pulling sleds across Antarctica. You have to be dialed in, and you have to have your nutrition dialed in. So let's talk about health. What are some happy hustle hacks, I like to call them, for your health that you use to stay on point? And what are some of those things that maybe other people can use as well?
Yeah. So I think the first one is obviously nutrition. So I eat like mostly plant-based foods, and if possible, organic, if the choice is available. The second thing is also to prioritize recovery, which is something that I neglected earlier in my life, but now is a priority. It starts with sleep. So just making sure you have enough of sleep. And if you can have a tracking device, like for instance, I have this Oura ring that I use to monitor my sleep every night, or any other like devices could actually work to give you actually feedback. And then you can actually change some variables. Like for instance, one thing that I do is the last bite I put in my mouth is at least 3 hours before I put my head on the pillow. So then my body doesn't focus during I sleep on digesting. It focuses entirely on recovery. So we talked a little bit about infrared saunas also, which I think it moves the needle in a massive way.
Yep.
And one thing that I really like to, from a health, but it's probably more fitness. It's a machine I use. It's called Live O2.
Yep.
So basically, you alternate when you do a workout on a bike or a salt bike or just a rower or anything like that. So you go, let's say, a minute with lower oxygen intake. And then for the recuperation for 1 or 2 minutes, you go full blast, 100% oxygen that you breathe through your mask. So I feel like this is not only great for your VO2 max, but it's also great for the brain power. So I do that in the morning. I feel on top of the world. I feel super sharp afterwards. So it's one hack that is really helpful.
Yeah. Exercising with oxygen, the Live O2 machine. We actually had him on the Biohacking Secrets show, the CEO and founder of that company. The infrared sauna, we just had Robbie from Therasage on. Great tool also. I mean, focusing on nutrition, guys, you heard it from Seb, like eating mainly plant-based, organic, natural ingredients, extremely important. And then cutting off your feeding window 3 hours before you go to bed. It seems, so small in the scheme of things, but then your body can fully focus on, sleep and recovery, not digesting the food that you just ate right before, these are all great happy hustle hacks.
And
thank you.
Hydration also is very important. Since I do a lot of endurance sports, I drink a gallon or a gallon and a half of water every day.
Yeah. So great point. Yeah. I mean, we could all probably benefit from, hydrating our body more. So they say, take your body weight, times it by 0.7. That's how many ounces in water you should be drinking every single day. So
another quick one is reducing / almost eliminating alcohol intake. I was never a heavy drinker, but in the last several months, if I have a drink, it's exceptional. It might be weeks between drinks. And I thought that, and I found out that this is actually helping tremendously on the sleep. So it increases your REM, rapid eye movement, and also your deep sleep stats by a lot.
Yeah. So very good point. I mean, I rarely drink. I actually had a Corona with tomato juice. I love a michelada, like V8 spicy with the Corona. I had that last night for the first time in weeks. And, I could feel my sleep off. I could feel a little brain pressure and like headache when I woke up in the morning. So you have to really realize that ingesting alcohol, I know it's fun to be social and do it, but if you're at home in the quarantine right now and you're just drinking alone, it's not serving you in a health and fitness, in terms of health and fitness. You really have to be cognizant of what you put in your body. Same thing with smoking, guys. This. Like, I don't want to beat a dead horse here, neither does Seb, but these healthy habits are what are going to really prolong your life, reverse aging, as well as increase, performance in almost every capacity. So great points there, Seb. Let's get into a happy hustle hack for spirituality, because I know you meditate, somewhere between 15 and 20 hours a month. That's amazing. Like, what are some of the happy hustle hacks for spirituality that you use that maybe the listeners could benefit from? Maybe they have trouble meditating. What do you use to tap into a higher power and to get energetically aligned?
Yeah. Oh my God, where do I start? I think the first thing, as cheesy or corny it sounds, is trying as much as possible to be present. Like, for instance, when I spend time with my 5-year-old son, I don't look at my phone, so it's on the table and we're enjoying a good moment together. So I try also to limit screen exposure. Try to limit also social media to 30 minutes or less. Therefore, you want to ensure that you're predisposing yourself for your meditation practice. So, and on meditation is also a very important dimension in my spirituality. Something that I like a lot is two things, actually. Is the first one is I do the Wim Hof breathing technique, so which is something that I've learned, and I've had like tremendous results with this. And the other thing is I've read all the books of Dr. Joe Dispenza, and I did an advanced retreat, a week-long advanced retreat. And that's basically what I do. When I do like these longer meditations, I have a guided meditation by Dr. Joe.
Those are great points. Yeah, Wim Hof, get your breathing in check, guys. He has some amazing different video series that you can learn how to actually breathe properly. I know we do that with a lot of, biohacking clients, because a lot of people aren't using their full lung capacity, even a fraction of it. Yeah. So very good point there. It can definitely help tap into a more present, grateful, meditative state. And then Dr. Joe, Dispenza, he has some really powerful work out there. Definitely recommend some of his books and programs. And as Seb mentioned, it really helps him to do that guided meditation.
Yeah. So, and especially meditation, like the approach that I like with Dr. Joe is he's actually going to explain how your brain is working and some of the quantum physics concepts and so on in plain English, so you can actually understand what you're going to do during those meditations. So I like to understand rationally before I can surrender and to the experience of these different guided meditations.
Awesome. I want to talk about money, because let's face it, you work at the World Bank, you know money, you manage large amounts. I'm sure you've made a bunch, you've probably lost some, we all have. In order to become a happy hustler, one of the 10 alignments that I say is just financial abundance, but also financial literacy, making sure you know how to invest, save, spend properly. What are some of your happy hustle hacks that you use to manage money, to make money, to save money, et cetera, that you could use, that you've seen effective, that maybe the listeners can benefit from?
Well, probably the best book that I've read on how to manage your money effectively is a book written by Tony Robbins called Money. Great book. If you want to increase your financial literacy, I think it's a go-to.
Yep, I've read that.
But personally, I apply very simple principles. Like, for instance, I automatically put 10% of my income towards savings. And to me, the rule is it goes to savings. And unless there is something unprecedented, I lose my job, something happens that is very unusual and so on, I will never touch it. So therefore, it's growing, and you're focusing, or you're putting the emphasis on the compounding effect. So the other thing is to find the right advisors for you to manage your money if you don't do it on your own. So you have to be careful, because you have people out there that are, like salesmen, saleswomen, and they're not necessarily look at your best interests. So you want to have a financial advisor that is actually going to be paid if you make more money. And personally, the firm that I use is Creative Planning. So I've used them for a number of years, and they have these independent financial advisors that have your best interests at heart.
Great points there. So guys, first of all, spend, wisely, but also save at least 10% of your paycheck right away goes automatically, like Seb said, to a savings account. I do this with an app called Acorns. If you're not familiar, you can go to acorns.com. You set up an account where it just pulls right from my, Charles Schwab account right into my Acorns account, and it just saves at least, I think, it's like 10% of my income, and then also it reinvests it in, it rounds up different purchases. A very cool app that will utilize the compound effect to save automatically while you sleep. You don't have to worry about it. Great points there. And then find someone who's, smarter than you, who's also invested in your success to help give you proper advice in terms of literacy.
I think, Cary, you alluded to a very important point as well, which is basically playing strong defense.
Yeah.
In other words, before buying dumb objects, I was going to say a bad word. So you should be very mindful about your spending patterns and really ask yourself, do I need this?
Yeah.
Am I going to use it? And so on. So personally, I try to have I prefer investing or spending money towards experiences where I can maybe deepen a relationship with my wife or with my kid, or grow as a person by attending, let's say, a retreat with Dr. Joe. We just talked about that a moment ago. But in terms of physical objects, I try to be very, very mindful. And I've always asked myself, do I really need this right now? Is there something else that I can do without spending that money? So that's also very important.
Yeah, very, very important. It's not, if it's not a need, it's a want. And you need to focus right now, especially, given the economic downturn, everyone is being affected in some capacity. So manage your money accordingly. If it's not going to actually add value to your life and increase, your overall happiness, then maybe you can do without it for the time being until, I'm all for spending on extravagant trips, and material items that really bring you joy. But if it's not one of those, then, maybe we can do without. So great points there. Let's talk about entrepreneurship. And then I want to get into the happy hustle rapid fire round. In terms of entrepreneurship and just business in general, I know you've learned some great lessons throughout your career, managing at the World Bank and also being a consultant. What are some happy hustle hacks that you've seen effective in terms of business that you can pass on to the listeners out there who maybe want to start their own business or become a senior position at a large company?
Yeah. Well, I've had the privilege to advise many large corporations, medium size and even small size, and early on in my career, and now working at the World Bank. And one very simple thing that I have noticed in almost everywhere that I've been, a lot of these enterprises or corporations don't have a proper planning process. Like, where do you want to be in 1 year from now from a business standpoint? How do you want to break that down in different steps or phases or deliverables and so on? And then that actually translates into a business plan in terms of how do you organize your resources, who's going to work on what, and then what's the timeline and so on. So a lot of people are hustling their way in the daily life and with losing sometimes the long-term picture. So I personally like to encourage people to have these cycles, like on a yearly basis. You should have your next year cycle, or maybe your next 2 or 3 years, to have some of these ideas and so on, and engage also with your team if you have employees, and then kind of break it down. It also helps to raise engagement with staff and people that are interacting with your business, because you know where you're going, you know what you're doing. And also it brings a lot of clarity. And once you have clarity, then it gives you a purpose on what you execute today, because you know that you're putting like this little step, and that's part of a bigger goal. So you're not just, fighting fire every day. So that's one very simple, but I've seen is lacking in many, many organizations.
Yeah, very great point. I mean, it's so essential that you plan accordingly and have goals, guys. reverse engineer that goal too. So then you know where you want to be. It's very difficult to hit a target if you can't see it, right? Like when Seb climbed Mount Everest, he didn't say, oh, I'm going to do it someday and it'll happen if I, just show up at the base. No, he planned, he trained accordingly. He knew the goal. He knew the date that he was flying out. He knew when he was going to return. It all was planned and accordingly. And that's when you can mitigate, potential risks and other variables that might arise. So in your life right now, if you don't have a clear goal, maybe let this be a little reminder to set one. Even it can be a quarantine goal. Just 30 days from now, set a goal. What do you want to do? Do you want to start your own business, or maybe you learn a new skill, or like Seb's typing now? Like what is a goal that you can set today, 30 accomplish it? And I want to hear about it. So send Seb and I a DM, on Instagram. If you set a goal in 30 days, I'll give you a free Happy Hustle hat. How about that? If you guys set a goal and you're listening to this and you send me a DM with what the goal was and proof that you accomplished it, I'll send you a free Happy Hustle hat. Cary _ Jack. And then also tag Seb. What's your Insta, Seb?
It's Seb Audy, Seb _ Audy. A-U-D-Y.
There you go. Tag Seb and I, and we'll get you guys a Happy Hustle hat if you accomplish your 30-day goal. So that's awesome, Seb. I want to get into the rapid fire round. And this is basically where we just ask, really quick questions and you answer first thing that comes to mind, honestly.
Perfect.
All right. Are you ready?
Do it. Yeah.
All right. Favorite book? Go.
Oh my God. There's so many. Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Great one. Favorite food?
A salad.
Oh, me too. Favorite movie?
Down the bleep. What the bleep down the rabbit hole.
Oh, I gotta watch that.
Yeah.
What is your spirit animal?
Tiger.
Oh, best business advice.
Have a plan. Organize yourself and focus.
Yep. If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
I think it would be flying.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Sounds cool.
Yeah, it does. One word you wish to be synonymous with your name for the rest of your life.
Explorer.
Oh, I like it. 3 things you're most grateful for in this life right now.
My family, my health, and Mother Nature. I really appreciate especially now at springtime, you have the trees with full flowers and so on. It's just so beautiful.
Yeah, very, very much agree. Mother Nature, especially Earth Day was yesterday.
Yeah.
Happy Earth Day, everyone. I know there's this crazy duality happening right now. Like, the planet is healing, but the people are suffering. It's a very interesting time to be alive. It's important to take care of Mother Earth. Seb and I are both eco warriors, and we're very much passionate about fighting climate change and really mitigating our carbon emissions and Seb's, going on these amazing expeditions to raise awareness. Seb, where can people go to find out more about you, to learn about your mission, to follow your journeys on these explorations? Give us some links where people can follow you.
So the easiest way is actually my personal website, which is sebaudy.com.
Okay, that's SEBAUDY.com. And then if you want the English version, it's /EN, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, because he also has the French version, right?
Correct.
There you go. And then what about Instagram and Facebook? Do you have social media profiles?
Yeah, so if they search with my name, they will be able to find. So Seb _ Audy is my Instagram, and same thing with my Facebook.
Amazing, Seb. Before I ask the last question, I want to open up the floor to you. Do you have anything you'd like to share with the happy hustlers out there regarding high performance habits, or, really just breaking through those self-limiting barriers, or anything in between?
Well, one thing that I would like to share actually is to, when you're facing a challenge, instead of struggling and suffering, enjoy it. So if you can switch your mind towards enjoying a challenge in the relationship because it's an opportunity to grow the relationship, a challenge learning something new where you're not good initially, but actually learning and growing and improving and so on, and just appreciating. And sometimes also another quick thing is do this, reach out and give a little tap in your back, because whenever you do, you put the efforts in and so on. I mean, you deserve to be kind of appreciate yourself. So, and that's also something that I find that we have a tendency to not do enough in our modern society.
Yeah, so well said. Give yourself a pat on the back, guys. Go
Yeah.
out there and do your best and focus on putting forth that effort, and the result will take care of itself if you continue forward and you keep the course that you set the goal. Now stay the course, continue every day to get better, and be kind to yourself in the process, right? Great
Yeah.
points there. Seb, final question. What does happy hustling mean to you?
Well, happy hustling means, you work hard, but you work with a purpose. And, that purpose is actually fueling this passion that you deploy to achieve your goals or to execute a specific task and so on. And just enjoying it, being happy, having joy in your heart as you are doing these different things, instead of being stressed out or being really harsh on yourself and so on. So it's really work hard, achieve great things, contribute to, causes, or make the world a better place, or helping the environment, or being the best father or mother or brother or sister that you can, or best friend that you can, but enjoying it, and be happy.
There you go. Well said, my brother. Thank you so much
Yes.
for sharing your love and light with the happy hustlers out there. I truly appreciate it, Seb.
All right. Thank you so much. And to be honest, it's a great show. Congratulations. I know it's a ton of work to actually, do a podcast the way you're doing it. So I admire you for it, and keep it up.
Thank you, Seb.
All right.